I'm a woman and I know what it feels like to be woke up for sex, and I don't like that. If you remember it, then I don't believe you.
I'm telling you the truth. I'm sorry. I tried to have sex with my girlfriend. I did.
I don't know, you're a dude. Does your wife get pissed off if you try to wake her up in the middle of the night?
She had white thong on and a t-shirt.
Okay, you talk to him. I'm gonna go call her again. Because right now, I don't believe it.
Take the pants.
You want me to bring him in?
Yeah.
In a plastic bag?
Yeah.
I mean, in brown paper sack. Okay, don't start yet.
And that's probably her message or whatever.
She's like, what?
And
well, we're not gonna.
Well,
we're not gonna tell her. You're gonna have to explain whatever the situation is.
That's what happened.
You got any questions about this? I mean,
I'm getting attacked now. I'm just feeling. Oh my God, bless. I want DNA. I want everything. I want to get it done.
We're going to put it to the front of the line, okay?
Get it done.
I can tell you, it usually takes a long time, but because of the situation, we will put it at the front of the line, okay?
Sure.
I mean, usually on this stuff, we do whatever we can.
Here is shorts and a shirt. I don't know if the shirt will fit in the sack. Before I call Carrie.
Yes.
You tried to have sex with Carrie.
I tried to have my girlfriend. Yes, that was in my bed. Yes.
Do you ever cheat on her?
No.
So it's only Carrie right now.
Carrie.
Okay.
All right, man. Put the pants in this bag and just put the. Unless you want to keep the shirt on. I don't know. I don't know if this shirt's going to be big enough for you. You're a big old boy. I was going to get a tie back, so I don't know where it is. Well, can you think of anything?
Will it be okay if I tell my family about this? And
No, you
that's
don't.
okay.
It's your life. Like, we usually have to spend as much time anytime there's an allegation, okay? Trying to clear up the matter, one way or the other.
I just
Okay.
don't want my girlfriend to be or something. I try to have sex with my girlfriend. As bad as that sounded, and as bad that sounds when she's asleep, yeah.
No, you're fine. Hey, I try to curl up with my wife all the time. Hey, she shoots me down.
I think she's probably just imagine her just being all nervous and whatnot. You know,
Well, you can get home and kind of explain everything.
so what goes on from now? There she is.
Well, you're headed home, obviously, because you need some pants. Why don't you go ahead and get dressed then?
Okay. That was just a little introduction video. How's everybody doing tonight? Can you hear me? Okay, and Cherie, unmute. Unmute, Cherie.
Doing all right.
Good.
Hello.
How you doing, Cherie?
I'm well. How are you?
Okay. I'm not evacuated and I'm not on fire, so I'm doing all right now.
That's good.
It's a plus for the day for me. Yeah. Yeah, it's a pretty crazy fire. I initially was like, oh yeah, mountain's on fire, it's no big deal. But then when they start evacuating people, you start going, well, maybe it does matter a little bit. But anyway, that I still don't know what the status of the fire is. Hopefully it's so I better close that.
Scary
Hopefully it's
stuff.
gone and under containment. I know this morning it had been 0% contained, whatever it is now. I don't know. I just thought if I pay attention, I'll just be stressed all day. So I just didn't pay attention. I figured if I needed to go somewhere, somebody was going to come down and tell me. So I wanted to make mention, hopefully that video was kind of a introduction to what we will be talking about today. Mostly focusing on the way the evidence was handled or mishandled in the interrogation when they interrogated Daniel. And there were some things about that I hadn't. I mean, I've watched that probably, I don't know, countless times. I don't even know how many times I've watched that to torture myself, I guess. But they talked about, we talk about how, the obvious thing that occurs when Rocky, takes that paper bag and, plunges his hand into it and opens it all up and everything, and how they just get the pants, Daniel just kind of rolls them up and tosses them in the bag that's sitting on the floor. But something that I had seen a little while back but never really commented on or said anything about, and that I thought was really, what's that? But something that I had seen a little while back but never. I'm echoing. I don't know why. Am I echoing out there in YouTube land? Anybody? I don't know what just happened. Anyway, I noticed, and that's kind of why I pointed this out in the video, Kim Davis gets all hoity-toity and goes out to call Daniel's girlfriend again, and Rocky tells her, hey, bring those pants. And, oh, yeah, you want me to bring the pants and a paper bag, and okay. And then she says, don't start yet, or something, like she just wants to be there for all this big dramatic thing or whatever. But anyway, when she walks in, what we can't see is that she hands those shorts and that shirt to Rocky Gregory, and he takes them from her hand and, walks over to the table, and he's kind of tosses them down there on the table, and then he opens up the bag or he picks up the shirt and, tells Daniel, I don't know if the shirt's going to fit. You're kind of a big old boy. Well, the point of that, is that, so we don't know who touched those clothes before Kim Davis ever got them, and we don't know who handed them to her, if anybody handed them to her or not. But so we don't know who touched those clothes, but we know that Kim Davis handled them with her bare hands, and then hands them off to Rocky, who we know has bare hands with no gloves, and then he just tosses them down on the desk, which may or may not have been cleaned at any point. But then he goes and puts his hand in that paper bag, introducing who knows what kind of with the yeah, that's probably right. Okay, that he's now introduced, and albeit very small trace amounts, he's introduced to whatever DNA was on the clothes to begin with, whatever DNA Kim Davis may have transferred to it, and then Rocky Gregory may have transferred to it. All could have gone into that paper bag. And, there was the claim that there was unidentified male DNA, but it wasn't Daniel, supposedly, which I find really hard to believe. But
It's just not that it wasn't Daniel's, but just that there wasn't enough oh gosh, I wish I could think of the terminology, but there weren't enough markers to be able to identify it not only as Daniel's, but as any male.
The profile,
So,
there wasn't enough of a
yeah, but
profile.
it probably is Daniel's, you know?
Right. Right.
Sorry.
No, thanks. No, you're absolutely right. It probably is. I mean, it would be weird if there wasn't any of Daniel's DNA on his own pants, right? So, it most likely is Daniel's. But the point is that when we're talking about, collecting evidence, there was just, besides just what we know as the popular, shoving of his hand into that brown paper bag to open it, there was a lot more DNA that could have been introduced because of the way he did that. So I just thought, yeah, I'm gonna talk about that just a little bit. I kind of thought it was important, to talk about too, and not even for Daniel's case, but for any case that's involving any kind of DNA collection and evidence and stuff like that. Now, also there is, Cherie and I were looking and talking about whether or not there was an SOP in Oklahoma City Police Department for evidence collection and handling. And Cherie did quite a bit of investigating on that and research on that. And we'll talk about what she came up with in a minute. But the only thing that is obvious is this part that was part of the part that goes along with this hashtag. It's I think we're talking about #9. I'm really sorry I didn't bother to show you that or to talk about that. But there's this here's what they say in the OSBI, so the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation's SOP says that once evidence has been recovered, do not extensively handle the evidence. Prevent contamination of evidence by packaging, sealing, and labeling items separately at the scene. Separately is a key word there. This will also prevent any errors from being made and provide a complete and secure chain of custody, which we know was not a thing. It didn't matter to Rocky Gregory if there was a complete and untainted evidence, because I believe he kind of number one, he's either as illiterate and dumb and uneducated and untrained as it would appear, or he just didn't care. And I kind of think maybe a little of both, but I also believe that he just didn't really think about it, didn't care, because he knew that they were going to get Daniel for this no matter what. And so again, thinking that it was just going to get convicted and then life was going to move on and they were going to have won this, crazy made up case that they had. He thought he could probably get away with doing that because nobody was going to notice or think anything of it. But he wasn't counting on a bunch of armchair sleuths to come in and look at the case either behind him. So you'd think that some people, some states and some prosecutors and some attorneys and some judges would start paying attention to what's going on in society and realize that, there are a lot of people who are watching, especially nowadays. People are watching what they're doing more closely than they ever have. So we'll see if that starts to change at all. But also going along with the hashtag is, they taught in the actual hashtag itself, which I've closed. And now I don't know if you happen to have that handy, Cherie, or not, or Kay, which one it is.
Catnip
Number
posted
9.
it.
Oh, number 10. Yeah. So number 10, is number 10. Hashtag number 10 says that Detective Gregory created another possible contamination route when he negligently packaged 2 items in a single evidence bag in violation of standard crime scene processing procedure to keep evidence items separate. So, so that's the picture that I showed you wasn't from OCPD. That was from the OSBI. So that's a different SOP than the one that we had from that we should have had from the OCPD. And Cherie was looking and looking, and she couldn't really find anything in specifically at OCPD's, SOPs for anything, which was kind of weird. But at the same time, I was like, well, we are talking about OCPD. No offense to anybody who, or anybody else living in or near Oklahoma, but it just seems like they kind of do whatever they want to do in Oklahoma. And I know that's not true, but it's what it feels like at times. So Cherie gathered some information though that I will share with you, and because I thought it was really good. It was really good information, and let's see if I can get the right thing. So the information that she found says that what we do want our audience to know about is this one fact. Why is this a problem that this occurred the way that Rocky did it? Why is it a problem? Well, among other reasons, number one, it can absolutely just taint the evidence altogether. And what it does for Rocky is it shows how his actions are either ignorant or reckless or both, and about the dangers that come along with contaminating evidence with his DNA or DNA from someone or something else, such as Kim Davis or whoever may have touched those clothing items before her. And the need, it also gives you another reason why there's the need for gloves is to protect, not only, we have to also think about it in the safety of others way, just like we don't know who touched those clothes before, Kim Davis did or Rocky did. We also don't know who touched those clothes that may have had other diseases or something, that could have been dangerous to anybody else that handled them. So it's not only for the protection or the preservation of the evidence, but it's also to protect their own selves. But they, again, that may go to the ignorance that they both have as far as collecting crime scene evidence. So there's a crime scene investigator instructor, Stephen Staggs, writes in his Crime Scene Investigator Network blog, to protect the evidence, we wear gloves to avoid placing our fingerprints on evidence and to avoid cross-contaminating the evidence. And so there's, I don't know how I can do two things at one time, two screens. Try and share this one. All of you guys who know about how to do this, can we share more than one screen or only just one at a time? Because it's frustrating having to go back and forth like that. So this is a little article about wearing gloves while processing a crime scene, and it just kind of talks about the necessities and why we do it. And in our case with Daniel, we're looking at a lot of cross-contamination issues that they just didn't seem to pay attention to or care about. But it says cross-contamination is a real issue at crime scenes when evidence may include DNA. We don't want to place our DNA on evidence we collect, and we don't want to transfer DNA from one item of evidence to another, both of which were done most likely, in Daniel's, when they collected his pants and his belt in one bag. And then he also says that many investigators think that they can wear one pair of gloves for the entire scene. And the problem with that is that an investigator is usually touching many different items in a crime scene, and going to his car to get something and then coming, opening the door, come back. So many different ways that we don't even really stop and think about. And in the I know that when we talk about the Avery case, that's one of the things that I believe Buting asks one of the witnesses on the stand in the trial is, what did you change your gloves before you you went to go open the latch of the hood, and did you wear a different pair of gloves for this, or did you change your gloves for that? And the witness, if I recall, the witness is kind of a little insulted by the question, like, of course I did, but the question obviously has to be asked, because I think especially those investigators who are maybe not as seasoned, maybe a rookie crime scene investigator, they might not realize, or they might forget, to do that. And when I worked at the state hospital, I used to wear gloves a lot. I worked with mentally ill patients, and just all sorts of unsavory, unpleasant things occurred during, whenever, just throughout the course of the day. And I got to a point where during the winter, there were a couple of them who had gotten sick and had, flu and diarrhea and colds and coughs and just different stuff like that. And I got really, a little, I don't want to say OCD, because that's a serious illness, but like a little, I had some OCD tendencies, and I was putting on gloves constantly. Um, uh, and at any rate, I said, gosh, I need to quit putting on new gloves all the time. Just I don't have time for that. And we used to always have to have them in our back pockets, multiple pairs, in case an emergency arose, or we had to do a takedown or something. We always had to have gloves but I was like going through all my gloves in my pocket within an hour of the day. And so I started washing my gloves and sanitizing my gloves, and I got in trouble. They told me, you can't do that. If you're going to wear gloves for all these, you need to put on new, fresh, clean gloves every time. And I was like, yeah, you're right. That's kind of, it's kind of defeats the purpose. Although it was protecting my hands from getting all dried out from the sanitizer and the washing, that it really wasn't as effective as it should have been. And it's the same thing, or even more so when you're collecting evidence at a crime scene. People are asking, where are we in the appeals case with Daniel? I believe the appeal was denied, and I go ahead, Kay.
His direct appeal was well, his trial verdict was upheld with his direct appeal, and then he filed a writ of certiorari at the Supreme Court, and they declined to hear his case. So he has a final appeal left with the Oklahoma State Supreme Court. And that's due in the second quarter, I think, of next year. But it's so frustrating, because our justice system reminds me so much of what Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey have had to deal with in Wisconsin. It's that same kind of thing with our judges. So when you start looking at things, some of the deals that were given to these accusers during the trial and after the fact, you start seeing the same judges' names coming up over and over again. So, you can make 2 and 2 make 4 in that situation. But long answer is he has one final appeal that's coming right up. And then the civil trial got pushed to next year, so not sure when that's going to be rescheduled for. So yeah, a lot of court stuff coming up with the civil thing.
We're just left hanging, like always, just waiting and waiting for the next thing.
Yeah.
Good question, though. Thank you for asking that. So anyway, Cherie found a lot of good information about collecting crime scene, the proper ways of collecting evidence at a crime scene, and none of which were, even in the crime lab itself, none of which were properly done by investigators or what's her bucket, Elaine Taylor. Sorry. So it's all just never been done properly from the very beginning. Something that Cherie found that I thought was interesting that I wanted to share, and we won't go through every single thing, but I do want to kind of touch on these points. When you're talking about collecting evidence from a male suspect that is also includes sexual assault, which obviously all of Daniel's did. This kind of gives you a rundown of the things that are needed, the equipment that you would need. And of course you need paper bags and boxes and envelopes and the swabs and the bindles of paper that you would use, or something else that's sterile that you can, roll clothes up in and things like that. The sterile swab storage containers, distilled water, toothpicks, clean butcher paper, combs, waterproof pen, evidence tape, protective gloves, face protection. Commercial products are also available for suspect evidence collection. But it tells you, and most of us have most of that stuff in our homes, I think, for the most part, already. So if you ever want to, do a crime scene investigation at your home, you probably have most of the things that would be necessary. But it does point out that you do not package bloodstained or other biological evidence in plastic bags. And then you need to avoid altering the stain or transferring the blood from one portion of the garment to another by folding or crumpling the garment, which was done in Daniel's case. Daniel did it himself. He just kind of wadded the pants up and with the belt in the loops and, tossed it in the bag. But we know that that's, the improper way of doing that. And then you want to be careful. This is also important, and I just don't know if we think about it, but you want to be careful not to lose or contaminate any remaining trace evidence on the garment. Now, there was nothing that we could see on the pants, of course, on Daniel's pants, but you don't have to see it. You just have to assume it, and just be really careful when you're collecting that stuff. You want to avoid excessive heat. When you're collecting it or storing it or moving it around. Avoid unnecessary moisture, of course, with any kind of liquids or water or anything. And then you want to avoid exposing bloody evidence to strong lights, especially as UV lights, and avoid touching, cough, all those normal, natural things that we should be doing just to be healthy. You just avoid touching it or coughing or sneezing anywhere near the evidence. Documentation, I believe it was Neverly. I think most of you probably know Neverly from Foul Play, but she and I kind of have talked about this before. If you don't document something, it never happened. If you don't, and I learned this when I worked in the state hospital and when I did my last job, most recent job, if you don't document something, it never happened. You've got to have the documentation. You've got to create a paper trail, and you have to keep the paper trail going. And of course, we don't know this for a fact, but I'm assuming that I can only assume that there was no documentation done of the collection of Daniel's pants. In fact, I find it interesting when those pants left that room that day. Rocky Gregory just picks that bag up and walks out with it. Well, I would die. I would love to have been a fly on the wall in the next following rooms or areas he went to know if he actually ever sealed that up and marked it with evidence, crime scene evidence tape or anything like that. Because I just bet he didn't. I don't know. That's not fair to judge or say, but that's his callousness and carelessness just kind of indicated that to me. Anyway. So document everything. You want to document it and say every detail, even if it seems like the most unimportant detail. You just want to put every detail in that documentation. You want to put the suspect in a controlled area away from, victim's clothing and the victim and the crime scene itself and all those things. And then they talks about trace evidence and how to handle trace evidence. It talks about pubic hair combings, and Kay and I were kind of talking about that before we started. Nothing was ever done like that with Daniel. There was no pubic hair combing done on him. There was no penile or hand swabs or anything like that done, which we can see here. It talks about penile and digit swabs. And So even though what I was saying to Kay was just because he didn't have Janie Liggins didn't claim that he had vaginal intercourse with her, she did claim that she had his penis in her mouth. So I don't know, but it seems to me if that were if that were true, then they would want to get the pubic combings from Daniel to see if there was any. I know this is really nasty and gross. Sorry, you guys. I hope there was nobody watching that's offended, but it's just the facts. If they would have done, if they had done a pubic combing, they, that would have been another reason that they would have, or another thing where they may have been able to find her DNA. Now we know that it never happened, so we know that it would have been pointless. But still, a penile digit swab, penile swab, was never done on Daniel. And apparently, supposedly, he had vaginally raped one of the victims that day before. So, none of those things were done. And then, of course, the things that we kind of know about, fingernail scrapings and things like that, or clipping the fingernails, buccal swabs. They did do the buccal swab on Daniel and, of course, on all the other accusers. And so, but again, no evidence was ever found of him assaulting these women. So, except for the one bit of DNA in the fly of his pants that, I think has been sufficiently explained. I mean, it makes sense to me, although Galen Gigger will go to his grave swearing that it's not possible. So I don't know.
Well, given that they already are trying to link him up to be a serial rapist, they've already questioned him about Terry Morris. They're in their mind. I mean, they've told him she's accusing she's claiming the same exact things. So wouldn't that be more reason to want to see what you could find on his body, on his pants? If he's a serial rapist, maybe he raped someone on the way to work today.
Right.
I mean, it's not logical.
Yeah. None of it's logical, and
No.
it just causes more frustration. So, and then Cherie had lots of other interesting information, that she found, but I want to share the one part that I do want to share. This was all that Cherie was able to find, as far as, and I don't know why it's not straight on my page, but it's really bothering me, but I will let that go for now because there's nothing I can do about it. But this is what she was able to find from, what's that?
It's not up.
Yeah, I know. I'm getting it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're fine. I had turned it off and forgot I had quit sharing it. This was what, can you guys see that one? Is that there now? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So this was what Cherie was able to find, as far as, OKC PD operations manual. And it's just, I don't know, it just not quite enough for me, I guess, but it says various methods can be employed when submitting physical evidence to laboratory services for analysis. Generally, the method selected will depend on the type and size of evidence. Of course, blah, 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 and all that stuff. An evidence envelope, submittal sheet, which is, part of the documentation. All property. It says that care should be taken to ensure all evidence that requires the refrigeration is done. That wasn't a part of the case, but this says here in 184.51, collecting evidence. The officer collecting the evidence to be submitted to laboratory services will first make note of the location of the crime scene where the evidence was found. She will collect the evidence, place it in a paper envelope, sack, bundle, or appropriate container. And we know that none of that was done properly at all by Rocky Gregory at all. So we know that there was a huge chances of cross-contamination and all sorts of other stuff like that. So that's going to be for next week. So then it just kind of makes you scratch your head and wonder, like, what the hell? Why did they not even give it not even try? But again, that just for me, because I'm so cynical, I've become so cynical. I just think they didn't care to try. They didn't care to really make any effort to do anything properly, because I think they already kind of knew where they were. They were at that point, all they really had to do was just start coming up with these other women, the other accusers. That was that, and that became the main project at that point, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, really, when you look all through this case with all the other women that become a part of this case, it's really clear that they were not following the evidence in search of the truth. They did not want, and I say this every time, and I'm going to keep saying it, they did not want to collect anything that was going to turn the direction that they were going, because they were going full steam ahead. He was going down. They didn't need any contradictory um, evidence that would produce. They didn't want data to test hypotheses. They didn't want that. It's
Right.
so sickening.
Well, just like they didn't want to do a photo lineup either, because doing a photo lineup wouldn't have worked well for them. It didn't work at all for Terry Morris' case, for instance.
I would be, I mean, I've always thought, if they did photo lineups for everyone, the likelihood of them choosing Daniel, if they didn't put any other officers in there that had actually really pulled him over, because they had contact with Daniel, and he's a really memorable guy, especially if you're not his same stature.
Right.
It, there are just a lot of things about Daniel that when you meet him in person, you don't forget. And so, I mean, I think some of them would have picked him out of the lineup just because they had seen him and he was a familiar face. So that could have been scary too. Um, but yeah, once again, exactly what you said, Rhonda, they didn't, what we were talking about, they not showing the lineups wouldn't create contradictory information for him to have to deal with, because they already had a lot of stuff they had to deal with. Just Terry Morris alone, having to get her to change her complete story, everything about it, to match up with her last interaction with Daniel detaining her and calling her in. They have a lot of stuff like that, with Sherry Ellis overcoming someone saying that their rapist is a short black man, a shade darker than
Her.
skin. That's a lot to overcome, and it's just dumbfounding to think that they did it. They were able to overcome those things.
Well, I think they had a lot of help overcoming it too. A lot of.
Yeah, you said it earlier, Galen Giger in his closing statement, um, when that's the last thing that the jury hears, juries think DNA is, that if DNA's there, that means people are probably guilty. And then you put the inflammatory way that Galen presented it, or misrepresented it, I should say. That could be one reason that the jury did what they did.
Yeah. I'm working on speaking of that, I'm working on a little clip that I'm making for about the jurors on the DNA. I mean, the two jurors that spoke, that gave the interviews. I'm working on a little clip of putting one of them together right now that I don't know, just for entertainment purposes, but
Yeah.
I'll share that another time. But yeah, there's a show on TV. It's well, I think I don't even know if it's on ID or A&E or something. I don't really know what channel, but I think it's called Accused, Guilty, or Innocent.
Oh,
And
I've seen one episode of
have
that.
you seen one of those?
Just one, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm watching the last one right now. I kept falling asleep watching the last episode last night, so I don't even know how it's ended yet. But um, then I'd wake up and worrying if I was getting evacuated, so I'd turn it back on and wait, and then I'd fall asleep just so I could never see the end of it. But anyway, it was there was one case. I don't know. It's kind of interesting. So I don't really want to give away too many spoilers, but one of the cases, what they do is you get to hear a case of whatever it is, murder or assault or whatever it might be. And I think there's 7 different episodes, but there's this one where a young girl, was accused of 10 years after the fact. A man was murdered uh, in the 90s, I believe, and this girl was about 13 years old. And 10 years after the fact, they get a fingerprint hit from her on this duct tape. And wow, it was just crazy because at the time she was 13 years old and had supposedly committed this murder of this older man with a 23-year-old accomplice, and both of them were tried together in this. But the only thing that they had on this young girl was two fingerprints on a piece of duct tape that was used to bound this man's body, feet, hands, legs, mouth, and nose, which ultimately was what killed him. Was whoever had done it had wrapped this duct tape around his mouth and nose and suffocated him. But this girl, when she was 13 years old, her fingerprints showed up on this duct tape, and I just thought, wow, that's just crazy, And so 10 years later, they bring her and her so-called accomplice to trial, and I won't tell you guys how it ends, but but it's it like goes to what Kay was saying. They can twist it, and they can make it whatever the evidence is. If they want to bad enough, they can work their way around to figure out ways to make it. And the thing of it is that that's the last thing that the jury hears, is what, in another one of these cases, the defense attorney defending this other case, this other man, he said, they had in this particular case, this man had been accused of recklessly driving or something, and ventured into another lane and killed and killed one man and seriously injured another. And so the defense attorney, when they went to trial, the prosecution put the widow of the man who was killed in this car accident on, and she was really emotional and very distraught and very heartbroken because she had lost her husband. And then they went to lunch or something. They had a recess or whatever they did, and prior to that, this man's got, a client had said, I'm not going to testify for my own, for myself. It was best if I don't testify. Well, the defense attorney said, after the state put on the widow of the man who was killed, and as emotional as she was, he said, I couldn't leave the jury with that last image of, we had to do something. And so his client ended up testifying after all in his own defense, because the defense attorney didn't want that to be the last thing that the jury saw and heard. So they made a last minute changing decision and put his client on the stand to defend himself. So it's exactly right. That's the last thing that a jury is hearing. And how funny that, no, not funny, but ironic or interesting or whatever you want to call it, that Giger would make that, the one of the last things that he said in his closing statement, because he knew what he was doing. He knew what it would do. And he knew that would be what the jury would probably, end the night with. So,
Well, he was the anchor in the whole relay. So
yeah.
he you know, the anchor has to really grasp at straws sometimes to make it across first.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Desperate.
And there's probably some truth to the fact that they may have been, who knows, but with the what things that I've read in different places where I've seen, there's some trial transcripts, are some of the trial transcript, just a few pages were released in an article done on criminal justice reform or something anyway, and I read some things in there, and I wondered, gosh, did they not, did this like make the jury, and not the jury, but did this make the prosecution nervous reading this, and or listening to this testimony? Because sometimes some of the testimony with Sherry Ellis, when she couldn't identify Daniel Holtzclaw in the courtroom, I just kind of would like to have been inside of Giger's head at that moment, thinking, well, what the freak is she talking about? She doesn't recognize the man who sexually assaulted her, and I just wonder, would that be something? I'd like to be a fly on the wall sometimes and wonder, think about what they're talking about or what they're thinking, or what their next move's going to be, or how they're going to rally from that, that last comment in the testimony that's really messed them up, Um, but I think a lot of the witnesses in Daniel's case were very well rehearsed from the way it sounds, obviously. So, I'm not sure what she's. Anyway, so the last thing it's kind of, I won't spend a lot of time on this. I'll let you guys out of here as quickly as I can. But this was a textbook that Cherie shared with me as well. It's actually a textbook I own that's packed away somewhere at my son's house. So it's really annoying that I can't get to some of my good stuff. But she shared this with me, and I just wanted to talk about kind of how how it ends, what it talks about with when you're the final steps when you're wrapping up a crime scene. So, like I had mentioned, documentation is incredibly important. If you don't document it, it didn't happen. Just remember it that way. Um, you want to photograph the scene. I wish I one of my classes, I had to do a mock crime scene, and I had a bunch of crime scene pictures that I had taken. I wish I had saved them, but I got rid of them after the class was over. But I'm like a nut. I was they told me, Rhonda, you're taking pictures of things that aren't necessary. And I kept telling them, how do you know it isn't necessary? This is the crime scene. What do you mean it's not necessary? Everything in there is necessary. So I had like dozens and dozens of pictures. Everybody else had 10 or 12, but I was not going to miss anything. But so they're talking about, taking photographs and making sure that you get any different, as many different angles as you can get, locations or whatever. If you can, you're encouraged to sketch the diagram. We had to sketch our diagrams. I didn't like that. I'm not very good at sketching, but I was very good with words, and so I just, with what I couldn't draw, I wrote down in words as much as I could. But they talk down here at the end of this part about marking evidence packaging when preparing. Let's see, that's not what I wanted to look at. When preparing a wireless phone or pager, but when you tie up a piece of evidence in a paper bag or however you do it, it's supposed to be closed with a piece of evidence tape, and that's not just a piece of Scotch tape or something like that. It's a specific kind of tape, and I think in most cases it's red, kind of a clear red color, and you have lots of different things. And we did this in the hospital when I worked at the hospital, when I would have to help do shakedowns in rooms and things like that. We would have to do that. We would take the evidence tape and, mark our initials on it, the date, and a brief description of what was found, where it was found. And, we had to be very specific with all that stuff. So, it's a serious thing. And like I said, if you don't mark it and make sure that, you're doing it properly, then it just didn't happen. It doesn't exist, and it cannot, and it can be how the evidence, how his pants just didn't get thrown out altogether is another question that I'll always have, because even if Rocky Gregory walked out of that room that day and properly sealed those pants in the bag and taped it up and did all, there's evidence on the interrogation video itself that evidence that piece of clothing was tainted. And I just think that should have never been admissible at all. But it was, again, that's just another bit of corruption that we just get to deal with for whatever reason, and why those of us on the outside have to keep fighting as hard as we can, doing whatever we can, reading documents, researching, combing through, just like me taking pictures of what other people thought were unnecessary in my little crime scene in college. The same thing when you're reading a document. If you might say something like, I've read the same document over and over and over, and I just can't. But sometimes it's just the placement of one or two words that might all of a sudden spark something, and you might go, oh my gosh, I hadn't noticed this before, or this didn't mean anything to me before until something else, So even if we think we might not be doing any good with what information we have or whatever we're trying to do on the outside, on our end of everything, in YouTube land, all of you, everyone there, it does help, because everybody reads things differently, understands things differently, sees things, hears things. We all interpret things differently. So somebody might read something and interpret it in a completely different way that, the eyes of a defense team or counsel or whatever just can't see anymore. It's important. So, if anybody gets feeling discouraged, we've all been at the Stephen and Brendan thing for how many years now, and we're still finding things. So, I'm sure there's still a lot more to be discovered in Daniel's case as time goes on, and I believe with the right documents and the right people and the right FOIAs and things like that we will be able to find stuff. And that's kind of where at least we're at right now, those of us, me and Kay and Cherie, and a lot of other people, not just the three of us, but a lot of other people, we're trying to work on doing FOIAs for different documents, for trial transcripts, or, whatever that we can get our hands on. It's just so expensive that we just haven't really been able to do much. And so, I don't know if we just do 10 pages at a time. I think Kay said like $1 each or something like that. And there's over 5,000 pages of transcripts. So even at $1 each, it doesn't sound like much, but it could be pretty expensive. But if you have something, if you've got your hands on a document or something that we've, sent you links to or something, I don't want anybody thinking that whatever you might have to say you won't be able to help, because you never know. You might just see it or hear it or read it with a different eye than anybody else has yet. So try not to be discouraged. It's kind of all I have for tonight myself. Cherie, was the stuff that you found, was there anything in particular that you wanted to talk about or share with the things that you found and shared with us?
Did you mention the part about in the Oklahoma City manual where the only time they mention wearing gloves is to protect the officer's hands from, like, hazardous materials, evidence, and they don't talk about wearing gloves for actually handling the evidence to protect from DNA transfer and stuff? Did you mention
I didn't mention that. No, I did not. Well, I mentioned the part about protecting, but not that they were more concerned about protecting their officers than they were about preserving evidence. So yeah. Yeah, that is a big deal. And it's right. They're right. Like I had mentioned before, you do have to be careful of what you might be getting your own skin contact with, but at the same time, you have to be just as diligent about protecting and preserving the evidence. So,
yeah.
Cherie is really, really good at finding things, you guys. she's comes up and she finds things that I don't even know how to look for. So if you have questions or you're curious about something, and then, you know, if she doesn't know, she'll tell you. But if you give her something that you're interested in and you can't find anything, she'll definitely do her very best to find it for you or to find something for you. So it's been really helpful for us. Do you have anything else that you wanted to add to the topic, Kay?
No, I think you did a good job.
What did you get a chance to hear from Daniel at all over the week?
I did talk to Daniel twice this week. Yeah, he's just working out a lot. That's kind of the highlight of his day, going to the gym. And you know, so far they haven't had a COVID outbreak there, so that's good. You know, just he got a chance to visit with the police officer from Tulsa that's been involved in his case. So, you know, that was something new. And
is that Jason Angel?
Yeah. So, you know, he was excited about that. You know, they got to talk cop stuff. Of course, Jason had a lot of questions for him about procedure and stuff, and like mission oriented questions. And I guess being an officer himself, he could kind of, once he learned the facts of this case, he could kind of understand what Daniel might have been doing at times that were so scrutinized. So yeah, he was in really good spirits and just, you know, always asking about videos and supporters, and really appreciating the Discord community and anyone who takes an interest in his case and looks at the facts. He always says thank you. Tell everyone thank you. He always says that.
That's good.
So yeah, it's good visits.
Good. So sounds to me like he wants everybody just to keep on sharing his information, talking about his case, and getting more people involved in researching and finding stuff out for him.
Yeah.
So,
hey, also, let me ask a question to people. You know, Team Daniel, the core group, is talking about a fundraiser, doing a calendar, like an 18-month calendar. Is that, you know, are calendars still a thing? What do you guys think? Is that a good idea? Or
I use calendars. I buy a calendar every year. So
I mean, you know, I'm in my mid-50s, so I don't know if I'm dating myself with using a calendar or not. What do you guys think? Good idea, bad idea?
What do you guys think out there in the chat? Anybody have any opinions? Doesn't look like anybody's. Hello. Don't know if anybody's.
That's all right. We can answer to that.
Right. And we can ask in Discord and stuff too.
Certainly.
So what kind of calendar are they thinking about doing? Like bodybuilder calendars, or?
Yeah, we were gonna just use pictures of Daniel just from his life before they took his life away from him.
Okay.
And just do appropriate photos for whatever the season is, but then maybe have a quote of whatever it was. So like if it's a picture of him fishing, maybe have a little couple sentences about him really enjoying fishing. It's, you know, one of his favorite hobbies. And then also have a wrongful conviction fact on each page.
Oh, okay.
So, you know, dual to raise money and also bring awareness to more people about the things that are going on in our criminal justice system. And, you know, frankly, before I was exposed to the Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey cases, I didn't understand how big of a problem it was and the reasons that it happens.
Yeah.
Um, I did not know. So I know there are so many more people out there like me who would care
Sure.
if they
They
knew.
knew. Right. Yeah. I love that question. I think that's, I mean, I would buy one. I would sell them, I would make people buy them. my
Yeah.
my family and friends,
Okay. I
But
guess what I'm asking is, to kind of get a consensus of people like you that know, oh, yeah, all my family and friends still use a calendar. Because that's what my husband said. Do people still use calendars? I know we used to have one hanging in the laundry room, but
in 1999,
yeah, but dude, now we use this giant desk planner that's laying over here on the coffee table.
I have like 4 calendars. I love calendars.
yeah,
Okay.
I do too.
All
Yeah, I
right.
do. I collect lighthouses, and so I always get a calendar every year with lighthouses on it. And
I
uh,
guess we also thought if we did a 18-month that since we're already so close to the end of the year here, that it would still be relevant, you know,
right,
if people were still buying it in March and April, they're
right,
still gonna get more than a year. So
yeah.
all right, that's the end of the
Oh,
calendar conversation.
no, I think it's a good idea though. Well, and not only that, but other ideas. If I'm just going to ask in the chat as well. If anybody else has, you know, it's such a touchy subject, but we really want to FOIA some documents and some information from the trial because we don't have anything really from the trial that we can share. We have to FOIA all of that, and so um, if anybody in the chat, if you have ideas or things that you've done for fundraisers or whatever that you think might, I don't know, am I allowed? I can ask that, I guess, can't I? But if you have any ideas, please, feel free to share them with us in Discord and let us know. Um, if you've got any ideas that have worked for you in the past for any reason that you've, tried to raise money for, whatever we can do legally, we would love to do. So
Yeah.
great. Well, that's awesome.
Well, Sean has a great idea over there. Good
Oh,
job, Sean.
I can't even, I haven't even looked at the chat. I've been,
I'll
what's
just
the,
leave it. I'll leave it at that.
okay. Well, we are talking about Sean, so
Yeah,
it could
yeah,
be anything fun and exciting, right?
sure.
Oh, you know what? I haven't even looked. Let me just look here really quick and see who we have in our chat tonight. I don't usually ever get to do that, and that's not really very nice. But Lynn Christine, how are you? I've not seen you before in our chat. It's so good to see you. I hope things are going well for you. And Alice and Linda. And I know I saw Jack in there. Hello, Jack. And oh, there's Cherie. And Catnet. Catnet, how are you? Thank you so much. Thank you guys for sharing the links for us.
Sean, I know
Lynn,
you weren't kidding. I see you weren't kidding, and you're right. That would be a great fundraiser calendar, but can you imagine doing that in Daniel's name with all the shit he's already been accused of?
oh,
That would be a great way to, yeah, that would sell like hotcakes, Sean.
oh no, there's dark side. I'm getting to Sean. I'm sure I'll see it. Just a minute. Oh, God. Lynn, I don't know. Lynn, is this your first, did you know anything about Daniel's case, Lynn, before? Or are you just kind of learning about it? Linda, OCD, Rhonda, laugh out loud, you're funny, haha. Like you could talk. Jack, blink, 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 blink. Oh, goodness. Yeah, that's right, Jack. We just read that the other night. He said, come on, just Rhonda. MTSO and WCL use tons of Scotch tape all the time. We just read that the other night with Dr. Silkman reading Sherry Colleen's testimony. It's absolutely right. It's funny because I had that in my head. I wasn't going to bring it up, but since you did, it's all good. Um, excuse me. We've talked about that, Jack, about the GFM. I'll talk to Kay and Sheree a little more about that, or maybe you can actually get on a voice call with us sometime and help us, talk about that too, because I know it's been a thing in the past. I also know that at some point they had a GoFundMe for Daniel, but it got shut down. But that was how long ago, Kay? Was that 2017 that happened? Do you remember?
I think that was right after his conviction.
Mm.
Maybe it was after his appeal was denied. I would have to check, but I do know one got shut down.
Yeah. So yeah, that's definitely a thought, a good idea. We can make that work without a bunch of controversy besides all of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, but gosh, I think, let's see, I think the ladies should do is this one we're talking about with Sean? I think the ladies should do a tasteful calendar with nudes. Oh God, no. Well, I mean, that would be fun and all, but not, like Kay said, not in Daniel's case. Would not go over very well. Strategically placed flowers. Okay. Isn't it past your bedtime, Sean? Oh my gosh, I adore him.
Hey,
No,
that's
that's
a good idea, Sean, about the wrongful one exoneration. He says, how about a calendar featuring wrongful convictions in Oklahoma? One exoneration featured in each month. Yeah, that's a good idea, but then we would have to share. I feel like we'd have to share the money with all the other people
all
who
the
are trying to raise money. And right now it's just money is a thing,
always money.
Well, the freaking civil trial is, I don't know how much those depositions are each, but can you imagine?
No, because I'm still trying to wrap my head around the over $5,000 for the trial transcripts.
Hey, don't keep your trap shut just because I
No,
shot down all of your ideas, Sean.
don't you dare keep. You
I
have some
like
of the
your
best
idea.
ideas,
I would just
Sean.
feel guilty about not sharing the money.
But no, you know what though? That
That
is
would
a
be
great
good to do
idea.
as well.
And what if we didn't just do just Oklahoma? What if we did like across the country? Then
There might need to be a couple calendars.
yeah, I think that's a really good idea,
That
Sean.
is a great idea, Sean.
Yeah, super, super good idea. Really good idea. I like it. I like it a lot. Yeah, we should talk about that more.
Yeah.
Sure. All right. Well, yeah, keep those ideas coming. Those are great ideas, Sean. Keep those coming, and the rest of you with other ideas. The whole us, of course, the whole us. Everybody but you. No, we would want you there too, Sean, of course. Oh, goodness. Yeah, so any other questions or you have a calendar idea for the next 20 years? Yeah, we do.
No kidding.
We could maybe work something out later at some point for something, I'm sure. Oh, that's cute. Okay, well, if nobody else has any questions, or next week we're going to kind of talk a little bit more in depth about Black Magic, who is the predecessor to Elaine Taylor. So we're going to kind of go into Black Magic a little bit. That's going to be #11.
Wow, that'll be a good one.
Yeah, so I was going to do it tonight, and I thought, no, I'm going to give her a little more time than just, 15 or 20 minutes.
Own show.
Yeah, she does, really. We might just have one hashtag next week.
I think we should.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. That's very, very definitely considerable. So, also, I just want to kind of tease everybody. I'm working on another project. that hopefully I will be able to bring to you within the next month or so. But it would be a project that I guarantee you nobody in this chat would want to miss. So I don't have anything written. I don't have anything documented yet, but I'm working on it. And I think that if I can manage to do this, it'll be something you'll want to invite all your friends to, even though you should be inviting your friends already. So definitely, I'll try to keep you posted on that as much as I can too. With that though, if Cherie, do you have anything else you want to share before the night is through?
Well, no, I think you covered it very well. Just keep following Daniel's case, please.
Yes. Yes. Don't leave Daniel's case. And here's another thing I want to share really quick, or ask really quick, actually. We have quite a few people in Daniel's Truth in the Discord, but I'd love to see a lot more going on in Discord. I mean, Kay posts in there every day right now. She posts the hashtags of the day, but I would love to see some more involvement from all of you guys. Just, for anything that I'm not even really picky at this point. We just need to make sure that we're getting more information, going up in Daniel's Truth, because I want it to grow bigger than what it is. I feel like it's kind of at a stalemate right now. It's kind of not really going anywhere or doing much, other than what Kay is posting, and occasionally I'll post something and Cherie will, but there's more than just me and Kay and Cherie to this. There's a lot more people involved in Daniel's case than just us. So, if you come across something that you think even relates to Daniel's case, don't be shy. Go ahead and put it in the Discord, and, let you share it with all of us. So.
And I've also been thinking about jumping on at like 8 or 9 a.m. Central Time during the weekdays, and just talking about getting into a chat and talking about the case, just, for like 45 minutes or whatever, 30 minutes, 60 minutes. So if anyone would be up for that,
Yeah.
I guess I should just schedule a time to start and see who shows up. But that would be cool if you guys want to. I don't know if that's a good or a bad time. Maybe I should ask you guys how many people that are interested, if that is a bad time or good time.
I don't know. I think it's
people are on in the mornings.
Right. I'm the only one who's the late bird around here. So I think that's a really good idea. I think it would be fun, and I think it would be helpful for people who would like to have a more, private, intimate, longer conversation about, any of it. So I think it's a great idea.
Would be a good place to answer questions that people have about specific things if you've been looking into the case or listening to Brian Bates' podcast. And I'm not saying that I know the answer to everything, but I do, I have been following this case for a really long time now, and it's convoluted.
Yes, it is.
All right, I'll quit bringing up new subjects now.
No. I think it's great. I appreciate it. So, all right. Well, if that's all, then welcome to those of you who have not been here before. Make sure that if you haven't already, to subscribe. Please like the video. I can't see where we are with likes, but I know my mods have probably been encouraging everybody to like, and there should be at least 9 thumbs up. 10. I think at one time I saw 10. So, but like it and subscribe and share it with your friends. I've told all my family, just go in and subscribe and like the videos, and then share it with your friends. Tell your friends that don't even know me about it. Because who knows? My kids' friends or my grandkids' friends might love true crime and not have any idea that I'm doing any of this. So please, don't hesitate to share it and, tweet about it and all that stuff, so we can get more awareness for Daniel with at least with this much now. So, all right. Well, that sounds like that's going to be about it. And I guess that Ollie will just say goodbye to everybody and we'll see you next time.
Night, guys.
Good night. Thank you.